Everyone knew I was a doormat for my wife, Elara Sinclair. But tonight, right in front of her face, I kissed another woman. It happened at the annual corporate gala. During the game segment, my wife chose to forfeit and accept a dare. The penalty was to mouth feed an alcoholic drink to a member of the opposite sex. Without a second of hesitation, she chose her boy-toy assistant, Brooks Miller. A full minute passed before they finally pulled apart. A thin string of saliva even stretched between them in the air. In the second round, the bottle pointed at me. I didn't hesitate to forfeit either. My penalty was to kiss a member of the opposite sex for 30 seconds. I smiled. I turned my head and kissed the billionaire female CEO sitting right next to me. Time seemed to hit the pause button. 30 seconds. Half a minute. It wasn't long, but it felt like a lifetime. The next second, the VIP lounge exploded. Holy shit. What the hell did I just see? Am I too drunk? He kissed her. He actually kissed her. Kissing Valerie Prescott right in front of Elara Sinclair? He's insane. He's completely lost it. Cash and Reed, are you crazy? Look at Elara's face. This is gold. Absolute gold. The entire booth, the whole room, was in a total frenzy. Gasps, screams, the sound of fists slamming on tables, and the crash of breaking glass mixed together in a deafening roar. Elara shoved Brooks Miller away, her face turning pale instantly. Then she flushed a deep, angry red. She pointed a trembling finger at me. Cash and Reed, what the hell are you doing? How dare you cuckold me right in my face? Let her go. Who do you think you are? I'm going to kill you. Brooks Miller looked shocked and angry too, but deep in his eyes, there was a hint of annoyance that I had interrupted his fun, along with a touch of smugness. Cashin, you're dead. Do you know who Ms. Prescott is? She's the CEO of the Prescott Group, worth billions. You're just a pathetic loser kept by your wife. A boy toy. You aren't even worthy of touching her pinky. You must have a death wish. Time was up. I slowly lifted my head and let go of Valerie Prescott. She stepped back like a startled fawn, covering her mouth. Her cheeks were so red they looked like they might bleed. You. She looked at me, her voice slightly raspy and full of disbelief. I gave her a small, apologetic smile, but I remained perfectly calm. So it was just a penalty. Elara's scream almost pierced my eardrums. Cash and Reed. I finally turned to look at Elara. CEO Sinclair, weren't we playing truth or dare? I forfeited, so I got to choose my penalty partner. Is there a problem? You. Elara was shaking so hard she could barely speak. You forfeited? How dare you forfeit? Who gave you the right? What kind of trash do you think you are? Oh, I cocked an eyebrow, my voice dripping with sarcasm. So CEO Sinclair actually knows the rules? Then what was it when you forfeited earlier, drank 3 shots, and jumped straight to the dare? Do the rules only allow you to quit halfway? Elara was momentarily speechless, her face turning even uglier. She doubled down on her attack. Cashin, if you're drunk, get the hell home. Don't stay here and embarrass me. I'm not drunk. I shrugged, looking perfectly innocent. I'm just following your lead. If you can forfeit to kiss your assistant Brooks, why can't I forfeit to kiss Valerie Prescott? Are the rules only for you? Or are we playing by the rule where the elite can set the house on fire, but the commoners can't even light a candle? Bullshit. Elara completely lost it. She grabbed a wine glass from the table and hurled it at me. Cash and Reed, you're a goddamn psycho. You're doing this just to spite me. You eat my food, you live in my house, and you spend my money. What right do you have to talk back to me? What right do you have to touch another woman? The glass whistled past my ear and shattered against the wall behind me, splashing wine everywhere. The booth fell silent for a moment. Everyone was terrified by Elara's explosive rage. I stood my ground without even blinking, staring at her with cold eyes. Elara, let's get 2 things straight. First, I, Cash and Reed, have never spent a single dime of your Sinclair money. Second, my gaze swept over her, then over the pale-faced Brooks Miller, before landing back on her. I spoke every word with icy precision. Who I touch is my business. Just like who you choose to kiss is yours. We're even. Even. Elara acted like she'd heard the funniest joke in the world. She pointed at Valerie, then at me, her voice shrill and piercing. Cashin, take a good look in the mirror. You're nothing but a dog the Sinclair family keeps. A doormat. When I say jump, you ask how high. And now you think you can bite the hand that feeds you. The surrounding colleagues and executives had mixed expressions. Some were disgusted, some sympathetic, and others were just enjoying the show. Exactly. Cashin, you've gone too far. Brooks Miller finally found his chance to shine. He supported Elara, who was swaying with anger, and pointed at me with righteous indignation. CEO Sinclair has been more than generous to you. Instead of being grateful, you pull this disgusting stunt in public. You insulted her and harassed another woman. Are you even human? His words immediately drew support from the crowd. He's right. What a piece of trash. Just a trophy husband living off his wife. Where does he get the nerve? CEO Sinclair, Let Ms. Prescott call the cops. Sue him for harassment. Yeah. Ms. Prescott, sue him. Throw him in jail. Valerie Prescott had been standing quietly by my side, listening to the noise and accusations. Her beautiful eyes swept over Elara and Brooks before landing on me with a complex look. She opened her mouth to speak, but I stopped her with a small gesture. Seeing Valerie's lack of reaction, Elara pulled out her phone and said coldly, "Cashin Reed, since you're looking for trouble, don't blame me for being heartless." She dialed a number. "Hello, Manager King? I'm in the rooftop ballroom. Someone is harassing Ms. Prescott here. Yes, it's very serious. Bring security up here to handle it right now." She hung up and looked at me as if I were a dead man walking. "Cashin, you're about to find out what happens when I stop being nice." Brooks Miller also wore a sneer, as if he could already see me being dragged out like a stray dog by the guards. The onlookers shook their heads, thinking I was completely finished. I didn't budge. Soon the door swung open. A group of security guards in black uniforms rushed in, led by a burly middle-aged man. CEO Sinclair. "Ms. Prescott. Is everyone all right?" Manager King hurried over to Elara, bowing and scraping. "It's him." Elara pointed at me. "He harassed Ms. Prescott. Kick him out. Then call the police." "Yes, ma'am." Manager King barked, waving his hand at the guards. "Grab him." Several guards started closing in on me. "I dare any of you to touch him." A cold, melodic voice suddenly rang out, carrying an undeniable authority. It was Valerie Prescott. She stepped forward, positioning herself between me and the guards. Her gaze was icy as it swept over the manager and the security team. Everyone froze. Manager King's hand stopped in midair, and the guards looked at each other, not daring to move. Elara and Brooks were stunned. "Ms. Prescott, you..." Elara frowned, looking at Valerie in confusion. Valerie didn't even look at her. She spoke to Manager King, enunciating every word. "Manager King, Cashin Reed is my friend. What happened just now was done with my permission. There was no harassment whatsoever." What? Manager King was completely lost. He looked at Elara, then at Brooks, and didn't know what to do. "Permission?" Elara shrieked, as if she were hearing something impossible. "Valerie Prescott. Have you lost your mind? He's a useless loser who lives off me. How could he be your friend? What is he to you?" "What is he?" Valerie finally turned her gaze to Elara. Those eyes, which usually held a gentle smile, were now sharp and freezing. "Elara Sinclair, who do you think you are? A married woman kissing another man in public, and you're here making a scene." Elara was intimidated by Valerie's aura and was momentarily speechless. "You." The crowd was petrified. Their brains had completely stalled. Brooks Miller's eyes darted around, and he started spreading rumors on the spot. "Cashin, you and Ms. Prescott. Have you two been seeing each other behind our backs? You shameless trash, how dare you cheat?" Slap. I backhanded him across the face. "Sorry, but I'm nothing like you. I, Cashin Reed, never rely on women." The moment I said that, the brown-nosers who usually sucked up to Brooks for favors started jeering. "Well, listen to him act tough. He's just a dog kept by the Sinclairs. A trophy husband mocking an assistant? Talk about humiliating yourself." "Exactly. Everyone here earned their seat with real talent. He's the only one eating off a woman's plate, and now he's biting back? Ha." I spoke calmly. "Sorry, let me interrupt for a second. It's not just Brooks Miller that I look down on." Brooks let out a mocking sneer. "Oh, so you're admitting you're wrong now? Tell you what, let me slap you 10 times, then crawl to me and lick my shoes, and I might consider." I raised a finger and shook it, cutting him off. No. What I mean is, I look down on every single one of you. Equally." Elara was so angry she started laughing. "You've got a big mouth, Cashin. Anyone would think you're the one running Sinclair Global. Since you're so high and mighty, I'll grant your wish today. Sinclair Global doesn't keep useless trash. Pack your shit and get out." I narrowed my eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" Brooks Miller smirked and slapped a piece of paper against my chest. "Kissing another woman in front of your wife while still trying to eat for free? Didn't your mother teach you any morals?" So this was the plan. I let out a soft laugh and signed the divorce papers on the spot. Then I looked at Elara and Brooks. "Morals." I paused, my eyes turning sharp. A married woman who kisses her assistant in public, and an assistant who climbed the ladder by sucking up to people while lusting after his boss. You two want to talk to me about morals? Do you even have any? You. Elara and Brooks both turned pale. "Cashin, stop making things up." Brooks jumped up. "CEO Sinclair and I are innocent. You're just a twisted, insecure freak who sees everything as dirty." "Innocent? That was even funnier. Mr. Miller, do I need to remind you how long you stayed in Elara's private office suite last Wednesday at 11 p.m.? Or how you snuck into her room during the company retreat last month? Oh, and the father of the child Elara accidentally lost was?" "Shut up." Brooks turned white as a sheet and cut me off loudly. "Cashin, Stop spreading lies. I'll sue you for defamation. Elara panicked too, screaming at the top of her lungs. Cashin Reed. Shut your mouth. If you say one more word, I'll rip your tongue out. Whether I'm lying or not, you both know the truth. I looked at them coldly. Elara, I've put up with you for a long time. Did you really think you were being clever? Did you really think I was like some blind, deaf husband in a movie? You think I'm an idiot? I looked around the room at the people who were just calling for my arrest. And you all acting so righteous while you suck up to the powerful. Do you think Sinclair Global reached where it is today because of parasites like you? Cashin, you're too damn arrogant. An executive who always hated me slammed the table. A loser living off a woman has no right to talk. Sinclair Global belongs to CEO Sinclair. It has nothing to do with you. Get the hell out now. Get out. Scram. Security. Where are they? Throw him out. The crowd's anger was reignited, all of it aimed at me. Seeing me become public enemy number one. Elara's face twisted with a cruel sense of satisfaction. See that, Cashin? This is what happens when you cross me. If you kneel and beg for forgiveness right now, I might let you stay as a watchdog. Otherwise, I'll make sure you can't survive in this city. Looking at her face, distorted by rage and triumph, she felt like a complete stranger. I was exhausted. I pulled out my phone. As soon as the call connected, a flattering, middle-aged voice came from the other side. What's up, Cashin? Why are you calling your old man? I curled my lips into a smile. Elara and her male assistant just shared a kiss in front of me. She cuckolded me in public. Oh, and she told me to kneel and be her dog, or she'd run me out of town. The other end of the line went dead silent. It lasted less than 2 seconds. What? What did you say? That ungrateful girl. Calm down, sir. I'll be waiting. Before I could finish, Brooks Miller snatched the phone from my hand. Hey, you're the guy this loser called? Still acting, huh? Arthur Sinclair on the other end was stunned. He probably hadn't been spoken to like that in decades. Are you that damn assistant? Brooks gave a mocking laugh. Cut the crap, old man. Just get down here so you can watch us kick this boy toy out of the company. Even from a few feet away, I could hear the roar from the phone. Fine. I'm coming. Brooks scoffed. Old geezer sounds tough, doesn't he? He hung up and gave me a provocative look. I couldn't help it. I laughed out loud right then and there. Elara, you've wanted a divorce for a long time, haven't you? Today, I'm giving it to you. Elara froze, seemingly surprised that I was the one bringing it up. A flash of joy crossed her face, quickly replaced by suspicious bitterness. Divorce? So you finally realized you can't fake it anymore? Fine. But don't think you're taking a single cent of the Sinclair fortune. No alimony, nothing. And all those years you lived in my house and ate my food? You're paying me back for every bit of it. Her words were cut short as the doors burst open. The heavy mahogany double doors of the VIP ballroom swung open with a loud, resounding thud. The sudden noise cut through the tense atmosphere like a blade. Dozens of heads turned toward the doorway in unison. A silver-haired man stepped into the room, surrounded by 6 imposing men in sharp gray suits. He wore a dark, hand-tailored double-breasted coat, holding a heavy gold-topped cane in his right hand. His face was carved from weathered granite, his dark eyes brimming with a terrifying, cold authority that instantly suppressed the ambient noise in the ballroom. Arthur Sinclair, the actual founder, chairman of the board, an absolute patriarch of Sinclair Global. The crowd went utterly silent. The executives who had just been screaming for my arrest felt their knees go weak. Several of them instinctively took a step back, their faces turning ash-white. Elara froze. Her eyes widened in genuine panic. A father? What are you doing here? Brooks Miller, however, didn't recognize him immediately. Brooks was a relative newcomer, elevated quickly by Elara due to his flattering tongue and behind-the-scenes favors. Seeing an old man walk in with an entourage, Brooks assumed it was just another local elder trying to play hero. Hey, old man, Brooks yelled, stepping forward with his hand raised pompously. Who the hell told you to barge in here? We're handling a security matter. Get out before I have the guards throw you. Slap. A crisp, violent sound echoed through the high-ceilinged room. Arthur hadn't even looked at Brooks. One of the gray-suited bodyguards had stepped forward with terrifying speed, his palm striking Brooks across the face, so hard that the young assistant spun through the air and crashed onto a glass coffee table. The glass shattered into 1,000 pieces. Brooks shrieked in pain, clutching his bleeding cheek, spitting out 2 bloody teeth onto the carpet. Brooks! Elara gasped, rushing to him, then whipping around to face Arthur, her voice shrill with indignation. Father! Are you crazy? Why did you have your men hit him? He's my executive assistant. Arthur walked forward slowly, his cane making a rhythmic clack-clack-clack against the polished marble floor. He stopped 3 feet away from Elara. His gaze didn't hold a single trace of fatherly warmth, only deep, disgusted disappointment. An executive assistant? Arthur's voice was low, heavy and resonant, rattling the glassware on the surrounding tables. An assistant who speaks to me like a dog. An assistant who eats from my company's table, sleeps in my daughter's bed, and dares to talk down to the man who built this entire empire. Elara's face drained of every drop of color. Father, you heard? I heard everything, Arthur said softly. He raised his eyes, glancing at the shattered glass, then at the red mark on Brooke's face, before finally turning his head to look at me. The icy fury in the old man's eyes softened for a fraction of a second, replaced by a profound, heavy guilt. Cashin, Arthur murmured, his voice dropping into a raspy, remorseful tone. My boy, I told you 3 years ago not to lower your head for this ungrateful girl. I told you that a hawk who clips its own wings for a sparrow will only end up being pecked at by crows. The room collectively gasped. The executives who had been eager to insult me a minute ago looked as if they had swallowed live coal. Father, what are you talking about? Elara shouted, her chest heaving as she tried to maintain her composure. Cashin is just a useless orphan you brought into the family. He's lived off us for 3 years. He hasn't earned a single dime. Why are you speaking to him like he's someone important? Shut your mouth. Arthur slammed his cane against the floor with a sound like a gunshot. The entire ballroom flinched. You arrogant, blind fool, Arthur roared, pointing his trembling finger at Elara's face. You think you made Sinclair Global into a top-tier enterprise? You think those 3 major technology patents, the federal infrastructure contracts, and the $50 billion valuation came from your little aesthetic redesigns and marketing meetings? Elara blinked, stunned. Of course it was me. I worked 80 hours a week. 5 years ago, Sinclair Global was on the verge of bankruptcy. Arthur interrupted, his voice cutting through her words like broken glass. We owed $800 million to the overseas lenders. It was Cashin Reed, who liquidated his personal offshore holdings, handed over the core algorithms of the Reed Foundation, and brought in the Prescott Group as our primary guarantor. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the room. It was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Every eye in the room pivoted toward me. Elara stood paralyzed, her jaw slightly open, her mind clearly struggling to process the words coming out of her father's mouth. No, that's impossible. He's just a stay-at-home husband. He cooks, he cleans. He doesn't even have a real bank account. Because he gave up his name to protect your pride. Arthur shouted, his eyes turning red with anger. He signed a non-disclosure agreement with the board so you could take the title of CEO. He sat in the background, writing your speeches, fixing your legal loopholes, and approving your corporate strategies. From his study while you walked around carrying designer bags and boasting to the press. Arthur looked at Brooks, who was cowering on the floor among the broken glass, bleeding and pale. And you, Arthur spat, his eyes filled with sheer contempt. You threw away a man worth $10 billion. A man who gave you the world, for a parasite who uses your money to buy cheap watches and fake clout. Elara's body shook violently. She turned her head slowly, looking at me as if she were seeing me for the very first time. The doormat. The silent husband who always had a warm cup of honey water ready for her when she came home late. The man who sat quietly in the back row during annual meetings, never demanding a seat on the stage. Cashin. Her voice trembled, lose its previous sharp, shrill confidence. Is father telling the truth? The Reed Foundation. The overseas capital. That was you. I didn't answer her. I pulled a pen from my inner jacket pocket, clicked it, and smoothly signed my name on the bottom line of the divorce paper sitting on the side table. Cashin Reed. The ink was dark, sharp, and decisive. I slid the paper across the marble table until it bumped against her trembling fingers. It doesn't matter anymore, CEO Sinclair, I said flatly. The 3 years are up. The promise I made to your father to help Sinclair Global clear its debt has been fulfilled as of midnight tonight. I straightened my lapels, turning my head toward Valerie Prescott, who was standing quietly beside me. Her stunning, flawless face held a faint, triumphant smile, her dark eyes reflecting the brilliant lights of the chandelier. Ms. Prescott, I said gently, thank you for the kiss. It was an effective wake-up call. Valerie's lips curved into a mesmerizing, elegant smile. She reached out, smoothly sliding her slender hand through the crook of my arm, leaning her soft shoulder against mine with casual, intimate familiarity. It was my pleasure, Cashin, Valerie said, her voice clear and melodious, carrying across the entire ballroom. In fact, the Prescott Group board has been waiting for you to end this farce for 2 whole years. Our merger proposal is ready, and your desk on the top floor of Prescott Tower has been swept clean. She turned her gaze to Elara, her eyes turning into 2 shards of ice. CEO Sinclair, effective immediately, the Prescott Group is withdrawing all credit guarantees, technology licensing, and capital backing from Sinclair Global. My legal team will deliver the breach of contract notices to your office at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Elara's face went completely bloodless. Valerie, you can't do that. That's 70% of our operating liquidity. We'll go under. Then go under, Valerie said casually. Without cash in, your company is nothing more than a hollow shell stuffed with incompetent yes-men and cheap assistants. Father. Elara turned frantically to Arthur, clutching his arm, tears finally spilling over her eyelashes. Father, help me. Talk to him. Talk to Cashin. Tell him not to leave. We're married. We have 3 years of history. Arthur slowly pulled his arm out of her grip. His expression was cold, heavy, and completely devoid of mercy. You chose your assistant over your husband in front of 200 people. Elara, Arthur said softly. You made your bed. Now you will sleep in it alone. Arthur turned to me, offering a deep, respectful bow, a gesture that shocked every executive in the room to their core. Cashin, my boy, I am sorry for what my daughter has done to you. The Sinclair family owes you a debt we can never repay. You don't owe me anything, Arthur, I said, setting my hand on the old man's shoulder. Take care of your health. Don't let this stress you out. Without looking back at Elara's frantic weeping or Brooke's pathetic groans on the floor, I turned around. Side by side with Valerie Prescott, flanked by Arthur's elite guards, I walked toward the grand exit of the VIP lounge. The crowd of executives automatically parted down the middle, bowing their heads in deep, terrified respect as I passed. The brown-nosers who had mocked me moments ago were sweating through their shirts, praying to God I wouldn't remember their faces. Behind us, Elara's desperate, heartbroken scream echoed through the hall. Cashin, don't leave me. Cashin. The heavy mahogany doors closed behind us, shutting out the noise, the greed, and the past completely. The night air outside the hotel was cool and crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain and pine. A matte black Maybach pulled up to the curb, its sleek body reflecting the streetlights. The chauffeur immediately stepped out, opening the rear door with polished precision. Valerie let go of my arm, stepping back slightly, her dark eyes looking up at me under the glow of the street lamp. That was quite a performance back there, Cashin, she murmured, a playful sparkle in her eyes. Though I have to admit, I didn't expect you to actually use me as your penalty. I let out a soft laugh, feeling a weight that had been pressing on my chest for 3 years finally lift away. I apologize if I crossed the line, Valerie, I said sincerely. You were the only person in that room who didn't look at me like I was a piece of dirt. I needed a decisive way to cut the knot. Cross the line? Valerie tilted her head, her lips curving into an enigmatic smile that could melt glaciers. She stepped closer, her sweet, subtle perfume filling the space between us. Cashin, I've been waiting 3 years for you to break up with that foolish woman. If a 30-second kiss is all it took to get the brilliant Cashin Reed back into the market, I would have paid $10 billion for it. I blinked, momentarily caught off guard by her directness. Valerie Prescott was known in the business world as the Ice Queen. She had taken over the Prescott Group at 22, ruthless, brilliant, and completely untouchable. Countless young billionaires and noble heirs had tried to court her, only to be demolished by her razor-sharp tongue and corporate maneuvers. Yet here she was looking at me with a warmth that could melt steel. Come on, she said, gesturing toward the interior of the Maybach. Arthur is meeting us at the private estate in the hills. We have a lot of paperwork to sign in. I think you owe me a real drink. One without a game attached. I looked back at the grand glass entrance of the hotel. High up on the rooftop terrace, I could see shadows moving frantically, security teams running, people shouting, the chaos of an empire beginning to crumble. I smiled, turned around, and stepped into the car. Let's go, I said. By 8 o'clock the next morning, the financial district of the city was completely shaken. A series of massive, unprecedented announcements hit the news outlets simultaneously. First, Sinclair Global stock dropped by 32% within 15 minutes of the market opening, hitting the daily circuit breaker. Second, the Prescott Group officially announced the total termination of all strategic partnerships with Sinclair Global, citing material breach of trust and financial mismanagement. Third, the founder of Sinclair Global, Arthur Sinclair, publicly announced his complete retirement, stripping his daughter, Elara Sinclair, of all voting shares and transferring 60% of the family equity into an independent trust managed by the Reed Foundation. In the executive suite on the top floor of the Sinclair Global building, utter chaos reigned. CEO Sinclair, the board of directors is on line 1. They're demanding an emergency meeting to vote on your removal. CEO Sinclair, The bank has just frozen our primary operating account. The short-term loans are being called in early. CEO Sinclair. 3 of our top senior engineers just submitted their resignations. They said their contracts were signed with Mr. Cashin Reed, not the company. Elara sat behind her massive mahogany desk, her eyes bloodshot, her hair unkempt, holding a cold cup of coffee that she hadn't touched in hours. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Her inbox was flooded with hundreds of urgent flags. Standing near the window, holding an ice pack against his swollen, bruised face, Brooks Miller was pacing back and forth nervously. Elara, what are we going to do? Brooks whimpered, his voice trembling with panic. The reporters are downstairs. They're saying you got dumped by your hidden husband and destroyed the company in one night. My reputation is ruined. Elara slowly raised her head. Her face was pale, her expression hollow and manic. Your reputation? She whispered, her voice dangerously quiet. Brooks didn't notice the look in her eyes. He continued ranting, his tone laced with self-pity and resentment. Yes, my reputation. I only stayed with you because you promised me I'd be made vice president next month. If Sinclair Global goes bankrupt, my career is over. I should have accepted the offer from the Lin family last month. Slap. Elara stood up and slapped Brooks across the face with all the strength left in her body. Brooks stumbled back, dropping the ice pack, looking at her in utter shock. Elara, are you crazy? You leech. Elara screamed, tears pouring down her face as she grabbed a heavy crystal paperweight from her desk and hurled it at his head. You piece of trash. It was all you. You kept telling me Cashin was useless. You kept telling me he was taking my money. You seduced me, you lied to me, you made me treat him like a dog. The paperweight missed his head by an inch, smashing through the glass cabinet. Behind him, Brooks panicked, backing toward the door. Elara, calm down. You were the one who wanted to play around. You were the one who drank with me. Don't pin this all on me. Get out. Elara shrieked, her voice cracking. Get out of my office. Get out of my company. Scram. Brooks spat on the floor, his face twisting into a nasty, venomous sneer. Fine. You think you're still a high and mighty CEO? Without Cashin Reed, you're nothing. You're just an arrogant, stupid woman who threw away gold to pick up dog dung. I hope you go bankrupt and end up on the street. He turned around, slammed the heavy oak door and stormed out. Elara collapsed back into her leather chair, pulling her knees up to her chest, sobbing uncontrollably in the quiet, empty office. The cold, cruel reality was finally settling in. The man who had stood behind her for 3 years, protecting her from every storm, shielding her from every corporate predator, taking all her insults with a gentle smile, was gone. And he was never coming back. At the exact same time, on the 99th floor of Prescott Tower, the atmosphere was completely different. The sun streamed through the massive floor-to-ceiling glass windows, illuminating an expansive, ultra-luxurious office decorated in sleek black marble and brushed gold. I sat behind an executive desk, wearing a tailored charcoal suit, reviewing a series of acquisition contracts presented by the head of the legal department. Sitting across from me, wearing a crisp white silk blouse and an ankle-length black skirt, Valerie was sipping an espresso, looking at me with a soft, relaxed smile. Everything has been finalized, Cashin, Valerie said, setting her cup down on the saucer with a soft clack. The Reed Foundation has officially reclaimed all core technology patents. Sinclair Global's market cap has shrunk by 60% overnight. By next week, their board will have no choice but to file for restructuring. And Arthur's health? I asked, looking up from the documents. He's resting comfortably at his private villa in the south, Valerie replied, gently. He told me to tell you that he feels lighter than he has in 10 years. He's glad you're finally out of that house. I nodded, feeling a quiet sense of relief. Arthur had been a good mentor to me when my parents passed away years ago. My 3 years of silence were a gift to him, an attempt to see if his daughter could grow into a real leader. Unfortunately, some people mistake patience for weakness, and kindness for submission. Just then, the phone on my desk buzzed. I tapped the speaker button. Speak, Mr. Reed. My secretary's voice came through crisp and professional. There is a woman named Elara Sinclair downstairs in the lobby. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's crying and refusing to leave. She says she needs to see you immediately. Valerie raised an eyebrow, a cold, amused smirk touching her lips. Should I have security handle it? I looked at the window, watching the distant clouds drift over the city skyline. No, I said calmly into the phone. Tell her I'll give her 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, the private elevator doors opened softly with a chime. Elara stepped into the top-floor lobby. She looked completely broken. Her expensive designer suit was wrinkled, her makeup was smeared with tears, and her eyes were swollen and red. She no longer possessed a single shred of the arrogant, high and mighty demeanor she had displayed at the gala last night. She walked forward slowly, her heels sounding hollow against the marble floor, until she reached the heavy glass doors of my office. Through the glass she saw me. I was sitting in a high-backed leather chair, a golden fountain pen in my hand, surrounded by top-tier executives from 3 different international conglomerates who were standing around my desk, waiting respectfully for my signature. Beside me stood Valerie Prescott, casually adjusting my suit collar with an intimacy that felt natural and absolute. Elara's chest heaved as she pushed open the glass door. "Cashin," she whimpered, her voice cracked, trembling like a child lost in the dark. The executives in the room frowned, looking at her with annoyance and contempt. But I raised a hand, signaling for them to step out. The executives bowed respectfully to me and Valerie, then filed out of the room, closing the heavy doors behind them, leaving only the 3 of us in the vast, luxurious office. Elara took 3 shaking steps toward my desk, then suddenly, thud, her knees hit the hard marble floor. She fell to her knees right in front of my desk, weeping uncontrollably, clutching the edge of her skirt with pale, trembling hands. "Cashin, I was wrong," she sobbed, bowing her head until her forehead touched the cold floor. "I was blind. I was stupid. I was manipulated by Brooks. I didn't know. I didn't know everything was you." I sat back in my chair, looking down at her from above, my expression completely flat, devoid of anger, hatred, or love. It was the look one gives to a stranger on the street. "Get up, CEO Sinclair," I said coldly. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No. I won't get up." Elara lifted her face, her eyes filled with frantic, desperate pleading. "Cashin, please. Give me another chance. We're husband and wife. 3 years. We spent 3 years together in the same house. You loved me once, didn't you? You made me breakfast every single morning." "I loved the woman I thought you were, Elara," I replied softly. "I loved the hard-working, humble girl your father introduced me to 4 years ago. But that girl died the moment you let power, money, and cheap flattery ruin your mind. I can change. I swear I can change." Elara crawled forward on her knees, reaching out her hands to touch my shoes, but Valerie stepped forward, placing the sharp tip of her high heel right in front of Elara's fingers, stopping her. Cold. Valerie looked down at her with pure, unadulterated disgust. "CEO Sinclair," Valerie said, her voice dropping into a razor-sharp register, "do not dirty his shoes. You had a king standing beside you for 3 years, and you treated him like a servant. Now that he's returned to his throne, you think you can crawl back with a few tears? Valerie Prescott, this is between me and my husband." Elara shrieked, looking up at Valerie with deep, bitter hatred. "You stole him from me. You lured him away." Valerie let out a bright, cold laugh that sounded like silver bells. "Stole him?" Valerie stepped closer, leaning down slightly, looking Elara dead in the eye. "Elara, Cashin was never yours to begin with. You were just a temporary test he chose to take out of respect for your father. You failed the test. And now, he belongs to a world you will never be able to reach again." I stood up from my desk, picking up a leather folder. "Elara," I said, looking down at her one last time. "The divorce papers have been filed with the court this morning. Sinclair Global's bankruptcy proceedings will begin on Friday. If you have any dignity left, take whatever personal savings your father left in your name, leave the city, and learn how to be a real human being." "Cashin, no. Please, Cashin. Don't do this to me." Elara reached out, her voice breaking into a ragged, pathetic scream as I turned my back on her. "Security." I spoke softly into my collar mic. "Escort Ms. Sinclair out of the building. If she returns, block her entry permanently." 2 tall, black-suited security officers immediately entered the room, gripping Elara's arms firmly and lifting her off the floor. "Cashin, I love you. I love you, Cashin," she screamed, flailing her legs, weeping hysterically as she was dragged backward toward the elevator. "I was wrong. Please come home. Cashin." The elevator doors closed, cutting off her voice completely. The office returned to a quiet, serene stillness. 3 months later, the autumn air in the capital was crisp and golden. Leaves drifted softly from the ginkgo trees along the grand avenues of the financial district. On the front page of the Financial Times, a massive headline dominated the newsstands. "The Reed Prescott merger complete. A new $100 billion conglomerate rises." Inside the private garden of a historic estate on the outskirts of the city, a quiet afternoon tea was underway. Arthur Sinclair sat in a comfortable wrought-tan armchair under the shade of an old oak tree, holding a cup of steaming tea, looking healthier and more relaxed than he had in decades. Across from him sat Valerie and me. Valerie was wearing a simple, elegant cream-colored dress, her hair pinned up loosely, reading through a stack of quarterly reports while resting her legs casually across my lap. How is Elara doing? I asked Arthur softly, setting down my teacup. Arthur let out a long, quiet sigh, looking out at the golden leaves falling in the garden. She sold her sports cars and designer bags, Arthur said, his voice calm, devoid of bitterness. She moved to a small coastal town in the south. She took a job as a middle management clerk at a local logistics firm. Her supervisor is strict, the pay is modest, and she lives in a rented one-bedroom apartment. He paused, glancing at me. She calls me once a week. She doesn't talk about money anymore. She doesn't talk about fashion or status. All she asks is how you are doing. I looked down at the tea floating in my cup, feeling a faint, distant ripple of emotion that quickly settled back into quiet water. It's better this way, I murmured. Some lessons can only be learned when you lose everything. Arthur nodded slowly. Yes, it is better this way. Just then, Brooks Miller's name popped up on my news feed. I tapped the link casually. Former Sinclair global executive Brooks Miller sentenced to 8 years in prison for embezzlement, tax evasion, and blackmail. It turned out that during his time as Elara's assistant, Brooks had secretly diverted over $12 million of company funds into private accounts, while blackmailing 3 junior female staff members. Without my protection, shielding the company, the police audit had caught him within 48 hours. He would be spending the best years of his youth behind iron bars, ruined, broke, and forgotten. Valerie closed her report folder, set it on the stone table, and leaned over, setting her chin on my shoulder, looking up at me with a soft, breathtaking smile. What are you thinking about, CEO Reed? She whispered, her breath warm against my neck. I looked at her, at those bright, intelligent, fearless eyes that had stood by me when the world thought I was a doormat, at the woman who was my true equal in every sense of the word. I reached out, taking her soft, slender hand in mine, interlocking our fingers. I'm thinking, I said, a genuine, warm smile curving my lips, that 30 seconds wasn't nearly enough. Valerie's eyes sparkled with a dazzling, beautiful light. She leaned in closer, her lips lingering an inch from mine. Then let's make it a lifetime, she whispered. And under the warm, golden autumn sun, as the fallen leaves drifted gently in the breeze, we kissed, not for a dare, not for revenge, but for a future that belonged entirely to us.